It's particularly important to make the correct preparations when driving over difficult rocky terrain. You should select the lowest possible gear in the transmission's low range if available to give you better low-speed control. Vehicles with air suspension should be raised to the off-road height, and the dedicated rock crawl program should be selected in terrain response. Try to be aware of the position of your wheels and ground clearance as you approach each obstacle. It's a good idea for someone to check your progress from outside the vehicle, acting as a marshal to guide you on the best course. It's wise to keep your thumbs on the outer rim of the steering wheel. This will help prevent any injury should there be any sudden kickback. Use only the lightest throttle pressure and, if possible, avoid unnecessary clutch slip. This will let the vehicle crawl forward smoothly rather than moving in sudden lurches, so increasing your control. If traction control is operating, you will gain the most benefit from maintaining or slightly increasing the throttle. Drive will automatically be diverted to the wheels with the most grip. If fitted, pay attention to the 4x4 information display, which will indicate if the wheels are at the limit of their suspension travel. This is the point at which traction control is most likely to operate. In this way, your Land Rover can achieve gentle, controlled progress over particularly rough and uneven ground. Some vehicles don't have low range or air suspension, and if this is the case, greater consideration will need to be made to your choice of route due to the ground clearance. Gentle use of the throttle is essential, and always check your route before you set off. Use a marshal if necessary, and you will be able to tackle rocky terrain with ease. It's best to follow established tracks when driving on open ground, but remember to avoid damaging virgin ground where possible. When you're negotiating a rutted track, the most important things to be aware of are your steering position and your ground clearance. Keep the front wheels pointing in the intended direction of travel. It's quite possible to travel straight ahead for some distance without noticing that you've engaged a degree of steering lock. The high ruts will keep the vehicle on its course until a point where the vehicle is able to jump suddenly out of the tracks. When driving rutted tracks, remember to keep your thumbs on the outside of the steering wheel, as in these conditions you could experience some kickback. The sidewalls of your tyres are vulnerable to damage from sharp rocks or roots protruding from the sides of the ruts, so maintain a close watch on the way ahead. And ensure you know the position of your front wheels at all times, keeping them straight if possible. On some Land Rover vehicles you can check this using the steering position indicator on the message center. Read the track ahead and be aware of obstacles that could compromise ground clearance. There is a right and a wrong way to tackle a deep ditch. If you drive into a ditch straight on, you risk damaging the front of your vehicle and getting stuck. The correct way is to drive slowly, engaging the manual differential lock and ensuring the indicator light is illuminated. Using the lowest possible gear in low range, where available, will give you maximum control. And raising air suspension if fitted will reduce the chances of contact with the ground. Approach the ditch at an angle of about 45 degrees. This means 3 wheels will be in firm contact with ground at any time, maximizing traction. The differential lock will further increase grip, helping you negotiate the hazard safely. Crossing deep water requires very careful consideration, as the consequences of getting out of your depth can be serious. Before making your decision on whether or not to cross an area of water, it's essential you check your proposed route on foot. Park in a safe position on dry land and wade into the water, using a pole or your shovel to assess its depth and to see if the base is firm enough to take the weight of your vehicle. Remember to check both sides of the route for the complete distance of the crossing, as the ground below might drop away at any point, and look out for any hidden rocks or obstacles beneath the surface. You should then compare the measurement of the deepest point with your vehicle's maximum recommended wading depth stated in your owner's handbook. As a general rule, water depth should not exceed the top of the wheel rim. Once behind the wheel, stick to your chosen route, maintain a safe, steady speed, and do not take any unchecked shortcuts. Don't enter deep water at speed. Beneath the surface, the ground will often fall away steeply. Creating a big splash may not only damage the environment, but also your vehicle. This is not the correct way to do it. Prepare by selecting a low gear and raising the air suspension, and proceed into the water gently. Once in the water, you may select a higher gear if necessary, to reach a speed where a bow wave is created. The bow wave is an effective means of lowering the depth of the water around your Land Rover's engine bay and air intake. The wave creates a cavity in its wake, reducing the water level. Ideally, the wave should be no further than 1 meter in front of your vehicle. On a manual transmission vehicle, there is no need to slip the clutch, but don't select a gear which risks you stalling. Don't worry about your exhaust pipe being submerged. Water will not enter the exhaust unless you stall the engine. In some parts of the world, beach driving is permissible and often the fastest and safest way of getting from place to place. However, before you begin to contemplate beach driving, you must be certain that it's allowed in your chosen location. You should also take the utmost care not to cause any damage to what can be a fragile natural environment that takes many years to become established. Sand is unpredictable in terms of support and stability. Look out for telltale changes in color that can indicate areas where you might find the sand to be softer and run the risk of getting stuck. The damp sand between the high and low tide marks can sometimes provide a firmer surface for driving, but can also be very soft. Always try to avoid driving here unless you're in a convoy with other vehicles. Should you be unlucky and become stranded, your vehicle may be in danger of being swamped by an incoming tide. So help needs to be on hand as quickly as possible. Try not to raise too much salt spray as you drive, and in general avoid driving in seawater. After a period of beach driving, you should take care to rinse the underside of your Land Rover to remove any salt water and sand. Side slopes are potentially the most dangerous obstacle you will encounter when driving off-road. There is a risk of your vehicle rolling over if you do not take the proper precautions. When preparing to negotiate a side slope, increase your vehicle control by selecting first gear in low range. If there is sufficient ground clearance, air suspension should be lowered, bringing down the center of gravity. Drive as slowly as you can, advancing on engine tickover or minimum throttle to avoid getting too far into trouble. Always steer straight and resist any temptation to steer up the slope, as this will upset the balance of the vehicle. Be aware of the angle of your vehicle and the risk of hitting trees or obstacles to the side. You can take further steps to lower the center of gravity by removing roof racks and stowing heavy items low down in the rear load space area, ensuring all loads are securely tied down. Once you've negotiated the side slope, remember to raise air suspension to the off-road setting if necessary.